Pasadena at the Norton Simon Museum, back in the back gallery of the Modern Art Wing, is Brancusi's most notable piece, Bird in Space. It's a brushed metal statue, a sculpture that captures the essence of flying itself. And that touches you in your lives without even being aware of it. Every time you pass in front of Garland Theater, there's a bronze sculpture there of an artist who was impressed by Brancusi and is trying to capture the nature, the essence, the very core of flight with that sculpture in front of Garland. There are still remnant wings on it, but it's the uplift that's the heart of that piece. It was a concord of 500 art critics, writers, gallery owners, collectors, institutions, agents. They voted Marcel Duchamp the single most influential artist of the 20th century. Think about that. That's some heavy company. When you look at the films and the artists and the singers and the actors and the ballet dancers, that's some pretty heavy company. Marcel Duchamp could not know that on the day his brothers came and said, your work is not good enough. He did not know that. He did not know that that bruise would end up changing the future of art and impacting your lives half a world away and a century later. That's the power that story can give us. As time goes by and you get to my age, you've been through enough of life's left turns that you realize, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible. I better take a deep breath and see how this plays out, because it may not be terrible. You may not know at the time. When I was working as an actor, pardon me, there were lots of times that I auditioned for things and I got called back and I got called back and maybe I did a screen test and I came home and said, I'm in, I got this, let's go spend the money. Didn't get it. And it wasn't until later that I saw the project and I thought, oh, thank you, God, I'm so glad I didn't get that. One of the reasons I eventually walked away from acting is that I got too many things that I wish I hadn't. The last film I got, all it was fighting and beating and hurting people. It's like, I'll be a part of that. But I've had enough time to be able to see that. What I encourage you to realize, pardon me, is that when life makes these left turns in your lives, they aren't necessarily what you see. You have to give them a little breathing room and see what happens. We, in the freshman reading list, we had to read the Odyssey. You guys read that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What a fascinating experience. I was kind of intimidated by it, so I read it on the highway. I go back and teach in Oklahoma every summer back in Cherokee. And I stopped at a little one-room schoolhouse, kind of a museum to this Cherokee, or this Oklahoma town. And out on a picnic table under a big shade tree, I sat and read the Odyssey one day. I was tickled, thinking that perhaps the ghost of some teacher might be able to pick on the fact that years after the school was closed and became a museum, there was still somebody sitting there trying to figure out the classics. And I identified with Ulysses. I identified with the challenges that he was facing. I think we all identify with that. But I also identified with the unnamed. Because one of my takeaways on the Odyssey was, what a patrician tale. The only people with names in that story are either royalty or they're some form of god. Everybody else is just monster meat. It's like Star Trek, you know, the guys with the red shirts. You know, when you see one of the crewmen with the red shirts, you know, first of all, they don't have any lines, and second of all, some monster is fixing to get them. That's the way I related too. For example, in the Odyssey, there's that moment. Nothing's made of it, but I know something must have happened. When that seasoned crew of warrior sailors are all waiting, hanging upside down underneath huge sheep, waiting for the Cyclops to pat each sheep and let them go. You know, those sailors hanging up there, they had to say something. Like,
so, you come here often?
that sheep is like,
You're like Sweaterzilla.
Hey, Murray.
you got a thing on YouTube? Well, my thing's grinning at me. I think as soon as we get through the security transportation pat down, because evidently some things never change, I'm gonna go find a rock and knock this thing off.
And you know that later on, crashing out of the brush, comes some beat up, broken sailor going, oh, right, oh, ow, ow. Oh, let's hang upside down and shoot. Oh, way on you. I recognize and I identify with those guys too, the guys without a name. But most of all, I recognize and respond to the siren song, the irresistible siren song. For I was one of those sailors on some boat before Ulysses or some boat after Ulysses. One of those sailors with no wax in my ears. Nobody tied me to a mast to save my life. I could not resist the siren's call. It is irresistible. I was looking at references. How exactly did the sirens kill those sailors who were lured in? One source said they were pulled into whirlpools. Another crashed against the reefs. A third said that Scythia reached out, plucked them from the boat, and rendered them. Pardon me. One source said they were killed by irresistible songs of truth. Wow, think about that for a minute. I'm not Tom Allard. I'm what's left of Tom Allard. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And a long time ago, I fell in love with an alcoholic. She was amazing. She was a soap star on TV. First a couple of years on Young and Restless, and then about 10 years on Days of Our Lives. And she was alcoholic, we were alcoholic together. And there are some stories about us in show business that I really wish weren't out there, but they were, because we were a little too cowboy for our own good. We can't go back to the Renaissance fair for one thing. But we had first moved in together, and we were very, very active alcoholics. And we'd fought for a couple of days. We'd been up for maybe 2 or 3 days drinking. And finally, long before dawn, she said, look, are you going or are you not going? I said, I'm going. Not too long after that, the limo showed up. So we piled in the back seat of the limo, popped some champagne. We're drinking champagne, going to LAX. We get to LAX. We stagger into LAX. I'm not paying any attention. Walk right across the strike line. The pilots were on strike. I just crashed right on through it. One of the Continental pilots came over and said, hey, you're wearing a Screen Actors Guild jacket on the back. You're a union member. Why would you cross that strike line? I said, did you turn off your television when we were on strike in 1980? He said, no. And I said, fire up some jet engines and let's get hell and gone for Texas. And a little bit down the airport, I heard Joy go, ha! So we staggered into the first class lounge and we popped some champagne and we drank champagne in there until it came time to get on the airplane. When I got in the first class section of the airplane, we were drinking champagne as we were taxiing out. We take off and we drink all the way and land in Houston, Texas. We get off the plane, we stagger down into the airport itself. I look at her and say, why are we here? And she said, I don't know, it's got something to do with the Army. About that time we hear, hey! We looked, there's all of the cops in the world. And I did what every man who loves his woman should do. Grabbed her by the arm and said, run, baby! And we took off toward the end of the airport. Not like we could go anywhere. And it really wasn't running. It was more of a stagger festival. We're staggering along. The cops usually go. They thought it was hilarious. They thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. Not that we just thought about it, but that we tried to do it. Oh, they thought it was the funniest thing. Turns out, we were there for the Harris County Sheriff's Department, Houston, Texas. There's a group called the Houston 100. And it's a wealthy group of benefactors who support the widows and orphans of the Sheriff's Department. So every few years, the sheriffs gather a bunch of donated airplanes and hotel rooms and stuff, and they get some people to come in, and they throw a thank you for the Houston 100. That's what we were. 5 soap opera stars, publicists, and Joe Nobody. So we're there. And cops, first of all, don't have much use for airports themselves. They go right for the airplane. So they open the door, and we walk out on the ramp among all these airplanes, and there in front of me is a helicopter, sheriff's helicopter. So we get in the helicopter, and the only room for me is the co-pilot seat in my legs. So I'm there, and we take off, and for some reason, the pilot thinks he needs to impress me. So you fly a helicopter with two hands. And he's saying, well, of course, you know, when you fly out to the oil rigs in the Gulf, which I do all the time, well, you can't fly that long with just not having a hand because you can't smoke cigarettes. So I've learned to fly with my knees. That way I can take a cigarette out and smoke a cigarette. And we're flying along. I'm drunk. This guy's flying a helicopter with his knees. I'm thinking, oh, Lord. We land at the Renaissance Hotel in Houston, Texas. Now, this is a palace. It has its own heliport there by its own golf course. So we land there, we go in, wasn't ready for this, red carpet. Boom, all the paparazzi in the world. Houston, Texas, news is out. Radio, television, Entertainment Tonight's there. Whole bunch of local print and press, the Latino newspapers, magazines, everybody's there. Well, drunk or not, we're showbiz. Pick a gear, put it on. Nobody teaches you how to escort a celebrity. One minute you're not with a celebrity, the next minute you are, and you just got to figure it out. And I learned that you make an entrance with her because women like to see a woman celebrity in a relationship. Guys don't care, but women do. So enter with her, get a bunch of shots with her, then I've got to know when to step away so she can get solo shots. And they get those, and then there's the tricky part. You got to feel the moment and know when to go rescue her, get her out of there. And I'll step in and say, baby, we got to go. Come on, we got to go. And she can say, oh, no, I want to sign autograph. Oh, don't mean. Sorry, baby, we got to go. And you pull it and she's thinking, oh, thank God, she's glad to get out of there. We went through that, we went through a welcoming dinner, and finally we were up to our rooms. Well, they didn't really, it's Texas, it's the South. They don't quite know how to do the hospitality to somebody who's not married. We weren't married. So they gave us two adjoining suites, each one with 2 bedrooms, each of those with a small bathroom. So there's 2 of us, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. She instantly did what every woman does. You know it's true. Gentlemen, you'll learn it's true. She ran through every bathroom and got every shampoo, every cream rinse, every roll of skin lotion, roll of bars of soap. Hair nets. That woman never wore a hairnet in her life. She took all 4 of them. Evidently, we're going to become fishermen. I don't know. But she had to have them. Next day, it was like, baby, I got to wash my hair. Give me one. But anyway, so we did what alcoholics do. We got loud, and we fought, and we yelled, and we threw pillows. Granted, there were 4 beds, so we did play some Peter Pan and Wendy. We did some of that bouncing around. You never heard that. But this time it was different because we had sheriff's deputies in the hall to keep us from being disturbed. And every now and then we'd hear them go over, open the door. There'd be a bucket, ice bucket, bottles of Lone Star beer for me, and a bucket of ice champagne for her. Kind of pull it back in, close it. Now where were we? Till way, way late into the night. Wake up the next morning, went out, and that was the day of the gig. And the gig was kind of a fashion show, interview. Joy was a singer. She was a Broadway singer. About the last 2 years of high school, on weekends, she was on the road as the vocalist for the Ted Weems Orchestra with her mom and chaperone. She went to Broadway, great singer. As a matter of fact, we had done a celebrity softball game somewhere, raising funds for a volunteer fire department. And she wasn't athletic, so she sang the national anthem. And you know that note that everybody's afraid of, the home of the free, everybody's afraid of that note. She went to that note, then she jumped an octave, and then she jumped another octave, and she held it for about, a year, and then she pushed up and let it fall away. Oh, thou brave. Maybe 200-300 people there. Absolute silence for like a 4 count. Little bitty kids, old people, everybody in between. And then all of a sudden, whoa! And it broke up. She had that kind of a voice. So she's out there, she's singing, and we'd stumbled upon a thing that worked for us. She worked on stage, I worked the wings. So I talked to the sheriff, what's your favorite show? What do you hate? Who's your favorite actor? What do you wish you could see on TV? What's your favorite music? Who do you listen to? No one had ever asked them. And they were very forthcoming and very supportive and told us all kinds of stories. As we got out of the gate, and we came into a surreal situation. Now, fortunately, we just passed through it. We came out of one elevator, walked across the lobby, and went to another elevator. But in that process, you have to imagine in your mind, the lobby of this hotel is cathedral-sized. And it's got a 3-story glass window. And the reflecting pond inside changes into a reflecting pond outside, which over a series of steps becomes swimming pools and jacuzzis and stuff. But that day, we were not the only noise in that hotel. There was a Texas band called ZZ Top that was in town. And I didn't see the band, I didn't see ZZ Top, but I saw their entourage, and what a freak show of bikers and musicians and scantily clad groupies. And for whatever reason, 2 things happened that were hilarious. First, the elevator doors would go into the lobby, and the ducks, instead of being outside, were inside the lobby, and they were going nuts. They were flying into walls and running into people. It was like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. That was hilarious and disturbing. But the thing that was funnier were the sheriffs, who got it in their head, ZZ Tops give the ducks acid. I don't know how they give the ducks acid, but they give them acid. And they were just furious about it. We just passed through this guy, didn't know that it went away. Later on that night, they said, we would like to share with you a club that we really like. It's called Texas Breeze. And this musician could have made it in any major market in the world. He was that good. But he loved Houston. That was his town. So he built his own joint. And what a joint. I mean, honky-tonk, man. Open that door and it's like honky-tonk heaven. Half-acre dance floor, killer band. And it was a law enforcement joint. Everybody that was there was either Sheriff's Department, Houston PD, Immigration, Border Patrol, Marshals, Texas Rangers. Everybody there was law enforcement. And this killer band. Well, as soon as I saw a dance floor, I grabbed joy because we're 2-steppers. We hit that floor, we were cruising around the dance floor. I don't think we made one lap before they started cutting in. And that was the template for the rest of the evening. All night long, she was dancing with sheriffs, and I was dancing with sheriffs' girlfriends and sheriffs' wives. All night long. And every time we made a lap around that huge dance floor, come back around our table, there'd be another 3 or 4 beers lined up for me, another 3 or 4 glasses of wine for her. And because it was a law enforcement joint, the place closed, and we just stayed. On and on and on. The band kept playing, and we kept drinking, and we kept dancing way late in the night. Sometime before dawn, they finally threw us out. The sheriff took us back to the hotel. We got a little sleep. Came down the next morning. It's time to go back to LA. So we go to the hospitality suite. And there's all these sheriffs. And they brought their wives and their kids. And we're posing for photographs. And she's signing autographs. And we're talking to everybody. They're giving me beer. And she's drinking wine. I'm drinking beer. And we're eating bagels. And we're gooning with everybody. And about the time I realize, where's everybody else? About that time, Deputy Sheriff says, okay, it's time to go. Let's go. We go downstairs, the lobby, the elevator door opens, we go in the lobby and out of the lobby, and there is what can only be described as a presidential motorcade. There's like 35 motorcycle cops, and there's 3 cop cars in the front, and an SUV, and a black stretch Cadillac limo, and a white Lincoln, and another SUV, some more cop cars, and a whole bunch of motorcycles. I mean, the president would take this. And then the cops start pushing us over toward this white Lincoln. So we're heading there. The door of the Cadillac opens, and the publicist sticks her head out and goes, hey, I'm with them. Sheriff says, get back in the car. Boom. What happened was, we responded to Southern hospitality. Joy was Little Miss Fort Worth. She was Miss Fort Worth. She was runner-up Miss Texas. I'm from Oklahoma. We responded to the hospitality. We'd be pleased to see whatever you wanted to show us. The others were stars. They were too important. They didn't want to go to a country bar. They wanted to go to a disco. They wanted to go where the cool kids were. Sheriff Southern Hospitality said, certainly. One of the actresses ran up $800 in room service charges at a gift store to take back to LA because she knew it was donated. She knew she didn't have to pay for it. They didn't say you can't have that. They said certainly. But they stuffed all 5 of them into the back of that Cadillac and they kept them for 2 hours while we were having breakfast upstairs. And they wouldn't let him out. They wouldn't let him out to pee. They wouldn't let him out to smoke a cigarette. They wouldn't let him out of the limo for 2 hours. They hated, I'm sure they hate us still. They hated us with a biting passion. So we get in the car, we're zooming along. We're over in the fast lane, the motorcycle cops are telling people to get out of the way. I'm doing 100 miles an hour. I look over, there's this beautiful soap star. She's my girl. I'm in this Lincoln. Well, that weekend, Vice President George H.W. Bush was back in Houston. I'm sure that everyone who saw that motorcade believed that the Vice President was in the back of that car because it looked like that. No. I'm the tech director at Variety Arts Theater downtown LA, making $265 a week. In this limo, same thing. Well, cops didn't mess around with the airport, they drove us directly to the airplane. We got to the airplane, they're holding the plane for us, and now the plane is jacked. And they came back, and the other 5 people burst out of that Cadillac and they run up the stairs to get on the plane. And they came back and said, we're 2 seats shy. So either fly coach or we can hold the plane and see if we can get somebody to change, or wait a couple hours and take the next flight. And we said, no, please, let them go. We'll stay. That's fine. And so we did. We went up to the first class lounge. We hang out for a couple hours. And Joy said those words that changed the game for an alcoholic episode. She said, I need a real drink. Well, that means either vodka or tequila. Things are going to get really ugly now. And we flew back. Let's see if I can get this up here. Christmas night, 1992, 9 o'clock. She has a massive grand mal seizure. I medevac her out 30 hours later because her liver is so scarred by cirrhosis for trying to filter the alcohol that she lived with. Could no longer produce clotting factor. So she had a bleed, she had a major cerebral hemorrhage. And 7 weeks to the day later, 20 years ago, about 2 weeks ago, I held her in my arms. She's still doing it. 52,000 Americans every year die just from a chemical interaction with alcohol. That's not DUI, that's not gun accidents, that's not stupid accidents. That's not wives beating husbands and husbands beating wives and everybody beating children. It's none of that, that's just a chemical reaction. Senator Mike Crapo, Idaho, drunk driving. The 19-year-old son of Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky, drunk driving. Starting defensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys, Josh Trent, intoxication manslaughter in the death of a teammate in his car. Like that sailor called into the whirlpools, unable to resist the siren song, thrown against the reef, sung irresistible, lethal songs of truth. Somehow, I survived. And like that sailor calling across the reef, she's there so that I'm here to call to you like that sailor. Beware. We have a member of the class of 2012 who was returning to California after her freshman year at a major Southern university. She's returning here because all they want to do is go get drunk. That's all they want to do. I went to a school like that. It didn't work out too well for me. And also, why I tell my story is that I know some of the people in this room, and that room, and that room, and already know alcohol stories. And you need to know that there's remnant of a crusty old stagehand who haunts the wings of Garland Theater. He's always around. If you can catch me when I'm not beating the children, because that is the fun part. Their little arms up, going, no, Mr. Dog. I've got gloves. It's the simple pleasures. You know that I'm always around. That's the why I tell my story.